Capt Ron here with the crew. Eric Larson back from his slight vacation. I think you were acting as a male nurse for our other missing flight attendant, Diane, who had some surgery, and then of course Dieter here. We have a special guest tonight that we'll talk about in just a minute. We want to welcome you to Fearless Flight Live. It's a weekly show that we do. Broadcasting over Facebook and YouTube, whatever is your preference. And we are here for people who have a fear of flying, people who know somebody who has a fear of flying, or anybody who just likes to talk about flying in the airlines and whatnot, and keeping up to date. I hope you had a good week out there. I think I mentioned we have a guest this evening that I'm going to bring on just shortly. The things we always like to mention are, let me see if I can share my screen without terrorizing myself. We always talk about the Birds of a Feather, our private Facebook group. We encourage you, if you have not joined, please consider that. We get a lot of good feedback from people who are in various stages of overcoming their fear of flying, and we get a lot of good interaction between the members. And so it's a great place to come. And if you do, please leave a message. And if you're on tonight or you watch the replay, likewise, please leave us a message in the remarks there. And any questions or anything like that, feed them to you can put them up on Facebook. Dieter and Eric monitor that, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that might come up. We're going to talk a little bit tonight about after our guests. We'll talk about the Air Hollywood event that we had a couple weeks ago prior to our flight out of Burbank, and we're going to talk about the upcoming coaching class. A little bit about coaching. Dieter and I are really putting a lot of effort into that lately, and it's coming along, and we want to keep you up to date on that. So our guest coming up here is Gilbert Neal, and Gilbert, I have to be candid. I saw Gilbert's name last week, or Dieter called it to my attention, and he said, I would love to come on to the show. And so we said, good enough. So welcome, Gilbert. It's
Hi.
nice to have you here and to talk about your experiences. Just out of curiosity, how long have you been connected with Fearless Flight?
A couple of years.
Couple years. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And before the flight, how would you describe your fear of flying? You know, where were you at on the spectrum?
It was pretty. It was like an existential thing. It was like, I'm going to be the guy who never flew to Europe. I mean, all the stories I hear, from my friends who travel a lot, I'm going to be the coward.
And was that a long-term thing, or
Yeah.
had you flown ever in your life, or
Yeah. Domestically, the longest flight I took was Denver from here, from Raleigh to Denver. And we got home on 9/10, which was the day before 9/11.
Okay.
But that was a very strange thing. We were lucky. We were very lucky. But that was the longest I flew.
Okay. So you commented last week about having a trip to Denmark and in Europe there, and we're going to talk about that. But had you flown, so 9/11 you flew, had you continued to fly over since 9/11, or
Yeah, Boston, New York, Buffalo, New York, I think. But not much at all. Just Boston was the longest one, I think.
So what was it like for you? Lots of anticipatory anxiety leading up to it, or what were the triggers for you?
A lot of anticipatory anxiety about loss of control.
Okay.
And thinking I was going to be claustrophobic. But mostly the bigness of going across the Atlantic Ocean to a place I'd never been before, and not being able to comprehend that.
So more more emotional triggers, not so much about the reliability of the airplanes per se, but more just about your own personal reliability and airworthiness. Yeah.
Right. And plus, the ever-present fear of, like, you sit down and you look around and maybe you feel a little panic and you think you're going to embarrass yourself.
Sure.
Which a lot of people feel. They don't want to yell, but they hold it inside.
Sure.
So,
so the social aspect was as bothersome as your own personal fears. And so what was the process for you to get to that? And you flew just recently, and like I said, we want to talk about that. But leading up to that, when you flew, or how much did you fly, or how did you cope? What were your ways of coping until you just recently?
Well, I would be. As soon as I would sit down on an airplane, usually I would feel a wave of panic.
Yeah.
And my hands would start to sweat, my whole body would sweat. And that's not a pretty thing. And and like I used to bring newspapers on to read, and I'd get them from the kiosk and stuff, and it would be all soaking wet and wrinkly by the time I got off the flight.
So really a lot of anxiety and just sweaty palms and things like that. So and when so what did you do to overcome this? So when did you make a decision to what did you do? How did you get to where you could get on the airplane and fly overseas here just recently?
Well, my mantra was the pain is not the plane.
Okay.
That's yours. You got that from you.
Right.
And I did a session with you, which was very helpful. I chickened out, and subsequently I chickened out once. I was going to Germany and I chickened out. I took deep breaths.
Yeah.
I focused on my breathing and what my body was telling me, and not letting the visual cues dictate how I was feeling. So I really focused on my breathing and that mantra. But I can tell you the main thing, and this is funny, and probably the thing that took away my anxiety totally, was that I use a CPAP at night.
Okay.
Which helps you breathe when you're sleeping. And I brought it with me, of course. I brought the adapter and stuff like that. And while I'm looking,
you have one of those little portable ones, or
no?
No. Yeah, the okay. Yeah. I'm curious because I have a CPAP too, so I was just curious about it. So yeah,
I would love one of those portable ones, but it's my travel companion and I are standing there, and I'm looking for my passport, and I can't find it. Looking for my papers, I can't find them. They're in some pocket or some bag of luggage somewhere. And I finally find it, and someone comes up to me and says, "Oh, by the way, we're offering free luggage, so you don't have to pay for loading it on or whatever. However it's termed. What is the term? What is the term?"
So you didn't have to pay to check your luggage,
right?
Okay,
right.
Got it.
So they said to us, "You don't have to pay for the check-in. We'll take the bags. We're offering this special." And I said, "Sure, yeah, whatever. Go ahead." And I'm looking for the passport, and I find it.
Right.
And by the time I arrive at the gate, I think to myself, my CPAP is going to Denmark no matter what I do. It's gone.
So
I better go.
It's making the trip, so you got to follow suit.
Right. So that I don't know, it kind of strangely eliminated any sort of anxiety, because I knew if I turned around and went home, I was probably going to die. So,
and you mentioned you had not made a trip to Denmark that you had planned. Did you cancel that before you got to the airport, or did you go to the airport and then so you canceled it as you approached the Germany date? So good for you. So this time whatever the difference was, you got there, and in the moment, finding out that your CPAP went, you said, "Okay, I guess I'm going to follow then, huh?" And that's pretty cute. It's funny. Yeah. So, and then, and so what kinds of things did you, for people out there listening, how did you get from wherever you were? It sounds like you had a lot of anxiety and stuff, enough to cancel your trip to Denmark before, or I mean, to Germany. How did you get to the point where you got to there, where even as you were there, you were still having doubts and all that, but when your CPAP went, you decided to go? How did you get to that point? Where did you get the confidence to do that? What things did you do?
Well, I listened to the show a lot.
Okay.
But I realized that I've got to push through. I might not have another chance to do this.
Okay.
So my determination was based on, I've got to push through. I might not have another chance to do this.
Okay.
Right.
Oh.
I might not be able to afford it. I might not be able to plan it. I might not have someone to come with me, which I did. So now the time is perfect, and I'm just tired of this. I'm tired of feeling this way. So
kind of the sick and tired of being sick and tired, and just decided this is the one. Good for you. Good for you. Yeah.
And it was great.
And I can't overemphasize that point in people's decision making, because you do have to get there. I tell people, your chances of being successful greatly increase if you get on the airplane. If you do not get on the airplane, it's really difficult to make the flight. And so it's important to do that. And when you were sharing how, it sounds like a little bonus where they didn't charge you for your luggage, because that can be expensive in this day and age. And then when through the boarding process in the gate area, waiting and things like that, were you delayed at all? Going through security, were you just able to keep moving and got to the boarding process and got on okay? Or did you have reservations?
No, I did not have reservations.
Cool.
I was determined. There was obviously the CPAP being in Denmark helped, but I ordered a book from I forget the name of the book. I could give it to you later, but it was like little things you would like write, and read about how silly it is to be afraid of. And I left that book at the airport when I went on the plane, but I didn't mean to.
Oh my gosh!
So I'm looking for it as something to read to reassure me.
Sure.
And I didn't need it.
Okay.
I really didn't need it. There was no sweating. There was no anxiety. There was no panic attack.
Yeah.
And, it's funny, the thing, you have a choice of either getting on the plane or dying. So
absolutely.
Maybe I think it's important. Maybe that's an overstatement.
Yeah, no, well, I think it's important to emphasize that what you're talking about, the book and some of the other things that you mentioned, you had a plan of sorts, and I think you've got to have some plan. It doesn't have to be all that elaborate, but you just have to do something. And so, and again, I think it speaks to other things that you did to prepare yourself, the show, whatever you attribute that to, so that when you did find that you left your book and didn't have it with you, you didn't have a meltdown with that, because some people do. Any little thing gets out of place. I had a fellow that he couldn't sit in the seat that he was planning on, and that was enough to push him over the edge, and he got off the airplane. So it's resilience is a very important part of growth in being a human. So anyway, and you had somebody you're traveling with. Did they provide some support for you as well?
Well, we had conversations where I told her, "Don't let me not do this."
Right.
And they occasionally would, help me with that.
Yeah.
But once we were on the plane, I asked them if they would hold my hand, on the plane, but we never did, because they were enjoying this moisturizer that they gave out to people in first class. Sure. So our hands were all greasy, and so
right.
These are all things I thought I was going to need. I didn't need them. I traveled with someone, and they were very nice. They traveled all over the world. And so I guess I figured that since they know what they're doing and they're doing this again. So
it sounds like just being with them and them being so well traveled and all over it, that added to your comfort level and sense of safety and all that. So when you let's talk a little bit about the flight. So you flew from Raleigh Durham to Reykjavik on Iceland Air, and then and stopped there for just fuel, or how long were you on the ground there at Reykjavik?
Like 45 minutes. We were at the
Yeah,
airport.
right, just long enough to fuel, and then on to Copenhagen. What was it, leading up from the time you got on the airplane and they pushed back and everything? Did your anxiety go up and down, or how? Tell us a little bit about that. Did you do fairly well, and it stayed in under your control, or how did you do?
It didn't affect me. I was kind of excited by that point.
Okay.
I was never someone who was bothered by turbulence or anything like that.
Okay.
For me, it was more about kind of excited by that point.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know why we're getting feedback every so often, but it's okay. Yeah.
But at that point, I'm more excited at the fact that once I sit down, once the doors close, I'm thinking, I am going to Europe. God damn it, I'm
outstanding.
going to Europe. And there's nothing that can stop me. I literally cannot stop this.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I usually have a problem with control, but it was the combination of the comedy of errors and the fact that Iceland Air has beautiful people working for them. So, and everything it didn't faze me at all.
Cool. And did you feel? Did you share with the crew at all about your anxiety or anything? Okay.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I said exactly what I was supposed to say, which was that I introduced myself and I said I'm not a very good flyer.
Right.
I'm a nervous flyer. And they said okay, and then I sat down, and a couple of times they checked on me to make sure I was okay. And that was nice. It was nice to have that attention, but it works. They're trained to do that sort of thing, and it helped me a lot. It did.
Oh, that's good. That's good. And the flight itself, you shared that turbulence doesn't particularly trigger you or anything like that. But so once the big thing is when they closed the door and moved away from the gate, then you started to settle in, and it sounds like and took off. And so I assume that was fairly 45 minutes on the ground. Did they deplane you? I'm curious.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I was wondering if when they refueled, if they did or not. So, yeah. And so then, and was the second, for whatever experience you had on the first flight, whatever anxiety you had, was the second flight after the refueling, was that easier for you? More routine?
Yes. I was a little worried that before the flight, I was a little worried that I would say to myself, well, I got to Iceland. Let's go back.
Right.
And check it out on Copenhagen, but I did not.
Right.
And I didn't really feel any sort of anxiety. I was worried that I was going to feel anxiety, but it never came. I don't know why. It just didn't.
Well, that's the experience that I see with when we do the round trip flights, like when we went to from Burbank to Sacramento and back. Whatever anxiety people experience on the first leg, they experience that, and then by the time we get in the air, about 15 minutes, most people just have calmed down considerably with that. And the experience of traveling with somebody that is in the same boat that you are seems to help as well. But by the time we get to Sacramento and we're turning around and coming back, people report they don't have any of the experience that they did flying on the first leg that day. So I think the repetition in short order, for you land 45 minutes later, you take off again. I think it is that exposure that really soothes you and gets you in a good place to do that. So, and then you spent some time in Copenhagen and there in vacationing and all that. Did you think about flying on the way home? Did you have any thoughts during your vacation? So that was good. So it didn't ruin that either.
Nope, not at all.
And post flight. So have you had any insights? Since you've been back, how long's it been since you returned? Just out of curiosity.
It's about a month since I got
about a
back.
month. Okay. And have you had any insights about your anxiety that you had before, anything like that? That will serve you well the next time you fly.
Oh, I'm stronger than I think I am. but I
Okay.
have to give I have to give myself a chance to be strong, or I'll just always wonder.
Okay. Okay. And
So
when you
it
think
kind of
about,
translates to other places in my life,
okay. Okay. And when you just thinking about that first leg from Raleigh Durham to Reykjavik, was there a high point of that? I mean, like when I soloed my first time in a light airplane, when I lifted off that time, and I said to my, oh God, and now I got to land it again. But there was an exhilaration that I've never equaled. For the first time you solo is a big thing. So I'm just wondering, was there anything like that for you when you lifted off or anything? Like, okay, I did it. Yeah.
Yes, when we lifted off, I was so happy. I was so
Okay.
happy because
Okay.
I lifted like this burden off of my back. I was always wondering if I could do it, and it seemed so impossible when I looked at like Google Maps or something, trying to find different routes and different prices and stuff. But finally, once we left the ground, it was just elation. It was just a victory.
Great. Great.
So
And conversely, was there anything in the flight that not necessarily devastating or anything like that, but a low point, when you said, oh gee, I didn't, here's that again, or this is troublesome or anything like that? Or was it pretty much, just a positive experience from when you got airborne?
well, there's a very marked, well, I wouldn't say marked, relatively speaking, but there's on the 737, there's a pretty marked difference between coach and first class.
Uh-huh.
Coming home, I flew in coach and I had a window seat, and for a second it felt like I was in sort of Dickensian nightmare. Because now they're not bringing you like plates of food. They're not letting you drink as much as you want. Now it's like, well, you want a bag of peanuts? Here you go. It's $5.
Right.
Oh, you want some water? Oh, and I'm big, so I'm like cramped in, and there's no working thing. And that was the hard part. It kind of made me a little anxious, but now I've learned that, if I want to do this again, I'm going to do it the way I want to do it.
Yeah. I appreciate that because that really is a consideration for many people when they're gaining their confidence to fly, is especially if they have any inkling towards claustrophobia, just being crammed in there, particularly in a window seat and all that. Yeah. And so the first time on your way over, you said they did not have the lay down seats, but they did have wider seats. Was it where there were like two on each side of the aisle? Yeah. Okay. So typical first class, and that provided with a little bit of room. That was probably a really good decision on your part to do that for the first leg as well. And so was that the only one, or did you ride in first all the way to Copenhagen on the first two segments, and then coach on the way back?
First two segments. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So can I say something about Icelandair though?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that opens up for me. I wasn't, I just haven't checked on that, but even though, it might not be the ideal way to go, but it sounds like that would be an option for some people. It's probably much less expensive than some of the other ways to get over there. So, yeah.
So if you buy a ticket and coach with Icelandair, eventually you start getting stuff about, instead of like Delta, who says it's going to cost this much to upgrade, they have a bidding thing where you bid money, and then the winning bid or the best bid will get the first class seat for the money that you bid.
Really? Oh, yeah. That's interesting. Wow.
So at Delta, if you want to buy a first class seat at the end, it's like, I don't know, $400, $500, $7,000.
Right.
But Icelandair, it's a bid, and you might not get it. But the higher you bid, the more likely you are to get first class.
So they have an auction, and when does the auction end? Does it end when you're boarding, or
Good question. Good question. I left a week after we got there, but my companion needed to stay in Germany for other things and then go back to Copenhagen.
Yeah.
I bid as low as I could possibly bid.
Uh-huh.
And she won the bid with my money. So she ended up coming home in first class, where I was like in coach and in the corner, and people were stabbing me with cattle prods and stuff. So it's like, but good for her. She
Yeah.
got that, and
So you can add flying on an Icelandic air to your stand-up comedy routine there. So what advice do you have for anybody, going from where you were, where it was really bothersome, and everybody's out there saying, well, he really wasn't that afraid, he's not like me or anything like that. What would you say to people that might be discounting how fearsome or fearful you were?
I would say an airplane is millions of people have done what I did before me. And the thing is to control something that you have control over, like your breathing.
Right.
Meditate, listen to, calming music or, something like that. Just focus on yourself, on your body. And take something very expensive from your house, put it in a luggage, and give it away as the check-on luggage, and then just know that if you don't go, that's going to be there no matter what you do.
So not necessarily your wallet, but something of value, put it in your luggage.
Yes.
So you got to follow your luggage. That's a clever one. We've not had anybody suggest that anymore, but we'll put that in our bag of tricks there.
A prescription would work wonders. If somebody needs a prescription every day, just put it in a thing, and it'll be there waiting for you when you get there. But
there you go,
Gilbert. I don't know if this helps or hurts, so I hesitate to bring it up. But you're mentioning your CPAP machine, and since late '88, sometime when a Pan Am airplane was blown up by an onboard bomb planted, that a passenger did not check with them, there's a thing called positive bag match. And if you are flying international, if you don't board the plane, they yank your bags off. It's not going. Your bag is not going unless you get on the airplane. Even if you turn away right at the gate, they'll pull your bags. Domestic, that's not true. But international, that is true. And they're real good at doing that and getting that done.
I wish I didn't know that.
Well, it made you didn't know it until now, but that helped you get on and go.
Yeah.
But that's the truth of the matter.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you sharing all that, Gilbert. And I just see I did have another guest that might show up, and looks like she's getting her courage up there. And her name is Gurjinder Dillian. There she is. Oh my gosh. So maybe you can help encourage her, Gilbert. You're scheduled to fly tomorrow, right?
Yes. Hi.
From Canada. Where are you going from, and where's your destination, Gurjinder?
Sydney. Vancouver to Sydney.
Vancouver to Sydney. So that's a pretty long flight. And how are you doing tonight? Mom wrote me a little email today. She told on you a little bit. She said you were having a little bit of a confidence crisis.
Yeah, I'm feeling better now. I've started packing and I felt better.
Good for you. Good for you. And I think Gilbert would reinforce that. And the most important thing is to just keep moving forward. And if you can, the difficult time might be when you probably get a peak of anxiety when they announce the boarding. And I would invite mom to just take your cute little cheeks and have you look her right in the eye, 6 inches from your eyeballs, eyeball to eyeball, and just have a calming effect on you, and just touch you gently and just encourage you to talk to her and just tell her what's going on. And there's no right answer. You can say, I don't like this and I hate this and all that. And all she has to do is just say, I understand, and I'm going to be here with you. And that's what all of us need sometimes. That's my basic, most fundamental advice for people who are really anxious about flying, is to just if you have a person traveling with you and you're lucky enough to have mom with you, just have her just hold your hand and look right in the eyes, because it's very powerful to make eye contact with someone and to talk to you just like she did when she gave birth to you. And she said, "Hello there, gorgeous. I'm going to take care of you until you can take care of yourself." And just frolic in the love and in comfort and confidence of that. And before you know it, you'll be on the airport or on the airplane and on your way to Sydney.
You leave a message, and if you're on tonight or you watch the replay.
Yeah. And anyway, any words of encouragement, Gilbert, for this young woman who's 17 years old that's going to become courageous tomorrow?
Sure. Have you ever gone to a prom?
Yes, just as
Getting on an airplane is like going to the prom. It's like you get all dressed up and you get all your hair done and stuff like that. It's like 10 minutes of excitement and then like hours of boredom. Trust me, it is exactly like that. It's boring. It's boring. Bring a book to read, bring podcasts, nice classical music, but it's not a big deal. It's kind of boring. So that's the advice I would give you, is just think of it like that, or sitting in a doctor's office. It's like you're all nervous at first, but ultimately it's boring.
Yeah, that's pretty good advice. That's pretty good.
It is exactly that. I just took last month the longest flight I ever took in my life, and the word I could come up with was excitement, boring. Boring. Landing was not a big deal because they're all pros. They know what they're doing. But just remember, breathe, control yourself, control your thoughts, control your music. You are in charge. They're doing this for you. And they're doing this so that you have a good experience, and you'll do it again and again and again. And just have faith in yourself. I should listen to myself.
That's great advice. Do you have any specific questions or anything, Gurjinder?
Did I go Pacific Ocean?
Oh yeah, we're flying over the Pacific Ocean, so I'm really scared that we're flying over like water.
Okay. Well, Eric has done that a lot. Eric's flown over the Pacific a lot on his way to Hawaii. So maybe he can tell you a little bit about some of the precautions that go into that. So and the one thing I will say is, when's the last time you heard about somebody ending up in the Pacific Ocean?
Never.
Not very recent, is it? Yeah. And the reason is because they don't. So that tells you something. But Eric, just give her a little bit of insight as to why it's so safe to fly over water.
We'll just give you a soundbite here, not a whole history lesson, so I don't make your head hurt. But the airlines petitioned the FAA in, I think, '86 to allow them to fly two-engine airplanes.
That's 1986. That's way before you were.
I think it was before any birthdays you might have had.
Yeah.
Just let them fly two-engine airplanes over water, and the FAA said, "Well, okay, why do you think we should let you guys do that?" And they said, because these new engines are so phenomenally reliable. And the FAA said, "Okay, we're going to make a whole special set of rules just for you that will make your head hurt and make you think you're reading tax code. And you're going to have to comply with every stinking one of them if you want to fly these airplanes back and forth over water." So there's a special set of rules for the airplanes that do that, for the crews that do that. There's an upgraded set of inspections. The intervals are very tight. Very little, if anything, on the airplane can be inoperative, even if they have 3 of them. And they have a special department, flight planning department, that dispatches them, that only does the overwater stuff. And so they're experts at looking right at that group. So those are even more tightly monitored, much more tightly monitored than regular flights. They're under quite a magnifying glass. So I'm thinking you're going to be fine, and it's going to be a good experience. And you're very, very young. And the airline is going to be interested in bleeding a lot more money out of you as you go through life. You're going to have a very good experience.
He wants in Australia.
Yeah, exactly. And the one thing I want to add too is that the things that make it, I think, so confrontive for somebody like you flying over water is you don't even know the questions to ask, right? The only one you can think of is what if something happens and you end up in the water, right? That's the one. And what Eric is emphasizing is there are people who do nothing but play what if, and we have the advantage of 120 years of aviation now of experience. Sometimes it was tragic. Sometimes there were things that happened to people, but we have the benefits of those, and the technology keeps improving, and the planning and all that. So people whose job it is, as Eric alluded to just play what if, they think about that, and that's how we get that special book of regulations to do that. So because people have confronted that, so you couldn't pick a better time in aviation to fly, a safer time than it is now. And so for people who, like you, are just uncertain and don't have the confidence because you don't know exactly what could go wrong and all that, it's an issue of trust more than anything, and not feeling in control. And we want to hear from you. I want you to text me at least when you land down there, and I'd love to have you come back on and talk to people as Gilbert did tonight, and talk to us about what it was like. Okay.
I would love to. Yeah.
All right. Any other questions that you might have?
No, thank you.
You're welcome. And I'm glad you came on. Mom,
Have
thanks
a
for
great
supporting.
trip.
Yeah.
And when it seems like it's a really long ways, it kind of is. But keep this in mind: when you come back, you'll have a tailwind, so you'll get back faster.
Yep.
Oh.
Focus on that.
And Gilbert, thanks for sharing your experience with us tonight, and all that. I'm gonna close this portion. We're just gonna talk a little bit about some business here. We've got the next. Okay. Have a good evening, Gilbert.
And Gilbert, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for sharing. Anyway, for those of you still watching here, we've been talking a lot more in the last. It's been over a year now since we've started our Fearless Flyer Club, our membership, and I just can't think of any other option that is better than having a place that you could count on every month to stay connected to people like Gilbert and people who are out there flying, and Dieter and Eric and I talking about just answering your questions, because many of you do not fly enough, to fly once a week or once a month. And in the past, one of the things that troubled me was people who fly and then they don't fly, and then it's kind of like they feel like they got to go back to square one all the time. And the Fearless Flyer Club is one way to avoid that. And we're this coming week, if I can pull it up here, we're going to have our monthly coaching webinar. If I can find the slides there.
Yeah, it's on Thursday, November 16th at 6:30 Pacific time. And Ron will find the title, but the title is one that is very near and dear to our heart, and it's all those of you who come to us and say, I have tried everything and nothing has worked. And while we absolutely 100% feel your pain, your frustration, this webinar is something that you haven't tried yet. And if you feel courageous enough to do this one more time, to give something that you haven't tried a shot, then this is really the webinar for you. There you go.
Yeah, I'm just winding up the presentation that we're going to have on Thursday night. So it'll be a combination of interaction with you all. We will have some activities. We'll then have a little bit of a formal presentation, and then the rest of the class is devoted to answering your questions and giving you real-time one-to-one coaching. And so whether you want to participate directly or whether you want to listen to some others, we really encourage you to do that. And as Dieter talked about, we're going to blow the myth out of the water. Why I've tried everything and nothing works, because there is no such thing. There's always something, and we're going to give you a very detailed explanation of how you can develop strategies so that you don't get stuck. Okay, so we hope that you'll join us and for that and all the other folks that'll be there. And there's a replay for if you for some reason can't stay for all or part of that. And we're just really excited to have you join us on Thursday night. And that's every month, the third Thursday of the month. So make sure you come back. What else? 15-minute coaching calls. If you're out there and you're just listening to us for the first time, either live or the replay, and you don't know where to start, it's always a good idea to start with a free 15-minute coaching call. Schedule that, and I'd be happy to spend some time with you and give you an idea what you can do to get over this. Nobody should be stuck on the ground. As Gilbert talked about before, it's just you've got to get to the point where you can take all the limits off your life, and nothing limits you in this day and age like having a anxiety or flight anxiety and can't get on an airplane. So any questions, Dieter, from anybody? Comment?
Well, there was one on YouTube about winter. What are the precautions that airports take when it gets towards or below the freezing point? So maybe Eric,
what I'm going to suggest we might offer we have methods for protecting the airplanes, and we have limits and boundaries for operating on the runways and stuff. But I'm going to think that would be a good crew subject, winter operations. Eric,
yeah, that's a good plug. Thank you.
And so we'll have people look forward to that. And when's the next crew only?
Actually, it's next week.
Next week, okay.
Next week, and if that person wants to tune in, we can go over that, because that answer is not yes, no, or three.
So we'll talk about winter operations is always interesting, and we are getting in that time of the year. I think the only place that any snow so far is up in the Rockies over this past weekend. But
Anchorage declared a snow emergency because they got more than 2 feet in less than 48 hours.
Wow!
Just like on the cartoons, went there you go, and they're like, oh no.
Yeah. So anyway, all right. So tune in next week, and Eric will take you through all the winter ops and the things that we do to keep you safe in during the winter. So, okay. Awesome. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. Thanks, Eric, and get well wishes to Diane, and thanks, Dieter, again, and thanks to all of you for coming and following us every week. We really appreciate it. We enjoy the questions that you come up with, and we'll until next week. This is we'll conclude this episode of Fearless Flight Live, and this is Fearless Flight. We'll see you, everybody.